And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Season overview on the Bengals and their season. And they were definitely one of the. I don't know why this keeps happening. Well, I do it to myself. It's my fault. Mic keeps falling. The Bengals, right before that, my mic fell again, were one of the more disappointing teams in the NFL. Joe Burrow coming back healthy off of the wrist injury. You thought this was going to be a big year for them. They were going to show everyone that they are one of the top teams in the AFC. But that ended up not being the case. They finished 9-8 once again and missed the playoffs. Now, the reason for that is because, well, first of all, it was not because of their offense. You look at where their offense ranked. The Bengals offensive rankings, 9th in total yards per game. They averaged 365.5 yards per game. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on there. I'm running out of gas here. So they were 6th in points scored per game. But yeah, 9th in yards per game. Yeah, that was really strange. I apologize for that. Running out of breath here. But 9th in total yards per game, 6th in points per game. They averaged 27.8 points per game. And yeah, their running game was not great. They ranked 30th in rushing yards per game. But, I mean, they were top 10 in basically everything else. Passing offense, passing yards per game, they were first. But yeah, it's amazing the comparison between the passing yards and the rushing yards. Because yeah, rushing yards, they were 30th. They averaged 92.6 rushing yards per game. But that doesn't mean that like their running backs were bad. Now, they did bring in Zach Moss, and you did also have Chase Brown. Now, Zach Moss ended up getting hurt, missed the rest of the year. But Chase Brown stepped in, and, he was very good as a receiver. And, yeah, did run the football effectively at times as well. But, yeah, they were not a very good running team. But the Bengals, I mean, when you look at their offense, they're throwing it constantly. Their total offensive yards, they had almost 6,000 yards of total offense. Total passing yards, Joe Burrow had almost 5,000 yards passing. Had the Bengals made the playoffs, he would have been an MVP candidate. But, the reason why the Bengals didn't make the playoffs, the real reason why, is because of their defense. Total yards allowed per game, their defense was 25th in the league. They gave up an average of 348 yards per game. 25th in points allowed per game. They gave up an average of 25.5. Passing yards allowed per game, 21st. Rushing yards allowed per game, 19th. Sacks, they were 24th. Now, they did have the NFL sacks leader in Trey Hendrickson, but that was really it. And then they were actually 8th in interceptions. All right, so you're top 10 in interceptions. But yeah, the Bengals' defense is why they did not make the postseason. And also, they did get off to a slow start, which is what they do every year. But this was a year where they couldn't afford to do it. They got off to an 0-3 start. Now, the first game that they lost was the first game of the year, and you could say that was not on the Bengals' defense. You know who that was on? That was on their offense. So I'll give you that. They lost to the Patriots 16-10. Joe Burrow only had 164 yards passing in the game. And also, leading into it, we didn't know if Jamar Chase was going to play because, with the contract situation, was he going to hold out? But he did end up playing, and the Patriots, they came away with the win. Really, the game-changing play was Kyle Duggar knocking out the fumble. We did talk about that from the Patriots' perspective. But yeah, Tanner Hudson was going in for a touchdown. Kyle Duggar knocked it out. And, that was kind of the difference in the game. But yeah, the Bengals only put up 10 points. Then they played the Chiefs in Arrowhead. And they had an opportunity to win that game. They did. But Joe Burrow, that costly fumble that led to a touchdown, and then you also had, on the 4th down and long play, Mahomes throws it up, it gets knocked away, but there was a pass interference on the play, so that puts the Chiefs in field goal range. Butker kicks a game-winning field goal, they lose that. And then this game, week 3, this was the Commanders coming out party, in my opinion. Um, Jane Daniels was efficient in that game. I don't think there was any punts in the game. Yeah, their offense just had their way with the Bengals defense. But yeah, Joe Burrow had over 300 yards passing. He had 3 touchdowns. Chase had a big day. They got T. Higgins back for this contest, they still ended up losing. Now they did win against the former Bengals quarterback and Andy Dalton the following week, the Carolina Panthers. So they got to 1-3, and they had the opportunity to beat the Ravens. The first meeting between the two teams. You're up 10 in the fourth quarter, and you end up losing that lead. Burrow ended up fumbling, and that led to a Justin Tucker game-tying field goal. And then, I think McPherson missed a field goal in overtime, and the Ravens ended up winning. But then they won against the Giants on Sunday night. They won against the Browns. So at that point, they were 3-4, and then you thought, okay, this is when they're going to start going on a run here. But then they lost to the Eagles. Eagles beat up on them. How many yards did Saquon have in the game? Saquon had over 100 yards. Yeah, they ran the ball for over 160 yards in the game. Burrow got picked off. And yeah, they ended up losing by 3 scores there. But then they beat the Raiders. And then you had that epic Thursday night game with Jamar Chase, scoring 3 touchdowns. Both quarterbacks played really well. Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, they both had 4 touchdown passes. But yeah, Chase had 264 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. They went for 2 at the end because, if they went into overtime, if the Ravens got the ball, they were going to lose. And they didn't get it. But the Bengals, they were up by 2 scores in this game. They were up 21-7 in the third quarter, and then they just didn't score again. The Ravens, they ended up scoring 21 unanswered points. So, you could kind of blame the Ravens offense there, but still. And then, they got off to a slow start against the Chargers. They did come back, but the Chargers ended up getting the win. Burrow had 356 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Chase had 2 touchdowns. He had 75 yards receiving. T. Higgins had 148 yards receiving and a touchdown. But yeah, they ended up losing that. So they were 4-7. Come out of the bye week, and the Steelers put up 44 points against them. Now, one of them was a turnover that led to a defensive touchdown. But yeah, it just was not looking good for the Bengals at that point. Russell Wilson had 400 yards of passing in the game, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, it looked like it was really the end at that point. But the Bengals then ended up winning 5 straight games. They beat the Cowboys on Monday night. They beat Cooper Rush, really. They beat up on Will Levis and the Titans. They beat the Browns. They beat the Broncos in overtime. That was a very good game. And then they beat the Steelers in the final game of the regular season to go 9-8. But, they needed help from other teams, and they didn't get it. And they ended up missing out on the playoffs. So too little, too late there. Had they won against the Patriots, they would have made the playoffs. But they did not. But like I said, Joe Burrow, a very good season. Fell just short of 5,000 yards passing, 43 touchdowns to 9 picks. Had the Bengals made the playoffs and finished with a little bit of a better record, he would have won the MVP. Chase Brown, Bengals weren't a great running team, but, he fell short of 1,000 yards. He had 7 rushing touchdowns, and he also had 4 receiving touchdowns. He did get hurt, though. I think it was the game against the Broncos he got hurt. But yeah, no, they got to pair someone else up with him. He's going into year 3 already. He took a big step forward for the Bengals last year. He's a good playmaker for them. But Jamar Chase, what a year he had. Triple crown in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns, 127 receptions on the season, 1,700 yards receiving, and 17 touchdowns. T. Higgins, despite missing some time, he had 10 touchdowns. He had 911 receiving yards. Mike Gesicki was productive for them at tight end, 665 yards passing, a couple of touchdowns. Yoshi Voss, their third receiver, he had 6 receptions, or 6 touchdowns on the year. But yeah, no, the Bengals offense was very good. One of the best in the league. Fell short of the playoffs. And, we take a look at their offseason. They paid Jamar Chase. They paid T. Higgins. We talked about that. They also paid Mike Gesicki. So, they brought their guys back. They brought back Joseph Osai. They brought back B.J. Hill. But, they signed T.J. Slayton, another defensive tackle. They actually brought back Samaje Perine. Actually, I forgot about that. They did bring back Perine. I feel like running back could be something they address at some point in the draft, maybe. But I think really they should go all defense. They brought in Oren Burks from the Eagles on a 2-year deal. So I guess that was a good pickup for them. But no, needle movers for the defense. So now, when we look at where they are picking in the draft. So they are currently picking at, I think, 18, if I'm not mistaken. 17. So they got the 17th overall pick. They got the 49th overall pick in the second round, 81st pick in the third round, the 119th pick in the fourth, 153 in the fifth, and then 193 in the sixth. But yeah, I think they should go. Most of their picks should be defense. And this is the thing for the Bengals, if they can fix that defense, and the other thing too is they got to make sure that they figure things out with Trey Hendrickson. If they could re-sign him, make sure he's on the team for next year, and you could fix this defense, and this defense could be just average, and you don't get off to these slow starts, this team will be back in the playoffs again. Burrow stayed healthy. Chase was healthy. T. Higgins is going to miss time. That happens. But if you could keep this team, you keep the offense healthy, and the defense could be just average, they will be back in the playoffs. And looking at Tankathon, they have Mikael Williams from Georgia, an edge rusher, going to the Bengals. So we'll see what happens. But they got to go all defense, in my opinion. And we'll see if they end up doing that. But that is the Bengals season. They went 9-8. I think they will be a team that can 100% bounce back. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well on the network. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to all the videos, YouTube channels. And also, if you want to listen to us, you go to Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You just type in GSMC and, whatever podcast you are looking up. If you want to look up my podcast, other podcasts, they are on there as well, wherever you get your podcasts. So, yeah, that is pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.